Hello.
What's up, friends, wanderers, listeners,
I'm still very,
followers?
like I was last episode. But I have something to read, so it should be easier for me. I'm not having to formulate new thoughts.
Right. She's not saying her own words that are coming out of her brain right that moment.
Right. These came out of my brain when I was in a better state.
I'm trying, like junior mints.
Mm-hmm.
These are junior caramels. Caramels? Not caramels. Caramels.
Either or.
It's not caramels.
Listen.
Do you say pecan?
I don't know. Sometimes I say pecan, sometimes I say pecan.
That's fucking good. Oh, I said it.
Both of us doing it right out the gate.
Whatever. Chocolate and caramel has been a new thing for me not a new thing, but I've rediscovered past little bit.
Get me a runt, and then I'll start reading.
Telling TJ you took out of his stash.
I ain't had one of these in a minute.
Anytime we go to a Five Below, or anywhere for that matter that has like actual runts and not the knockoff ones, we damn near buy them out because that is TJ's all-time favorite candy, and the kids have started to really like it too.
They're really good. Okay.
So they're a normal occurrence at my house now. Anyway, so this week we're talking about
Mississippi.
Mississippi.
The hell?
I had to say it out while I was spelling it. The M-I, crooked letter.
M-I-S-S-I-S-S-I-P-P-I.
I had to do the crooked letter I.
I've never been too much of a crooked letter.
Potato. Tomato. This caramel's really good.
Are we okay?
I have not partaken in anything. All right, let's get into it. You want to go first? You want me to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay. Cool, because I don't have a lot.
I'm going to start with City Cemetery.
There's a city cemetery literally everywhere.
Yeah, in most cities. Laura Mitchell was born on November 15th, 1852, and she married the town banker, Clement Clay Kelly, when she fell in love with him when she was a teenager. Laura and Clay had 5 children, and when Laura died at the age of 38, on November 29th, 1890, Clay erected a large statue in her likeness in the cemetery. The statue stands between 15 and 20 feet tall. It is said that he was so bereft with grief that he commissioned an Italian sculptor to craft the statue of her likeness in the family plot of the city cemetery. I'm not even gonna. It starts with a K. I'm not even gonna butcher it.
Hold on, I'm looking for it.
It's at the bottom of the second paragraph.
See it. I'm gonna Google it. How to pronounce. Let me unmute. Kosciuszko?
Kosciuszko.
Yeah.
Okay. Kosciuszko City Cemetery. The statue shows Laura dressed in Victorian attire with a cane in her right hand. It is said that the dress she is wearing was Laura's wedding dress, and there are no records to verify that this is what her wedding dress looked like. Laura's statue is called the Lady in the Cemetery, and though she lived such a short life, she has lived on in the imaginations of locals and beyond for over 130 years. Every Halloween, some locals will dress up and portray famous townspeople for an annual walk through the cemetery to hear stories associated with them, and it is no doubt that Laura is popular. On 2 separate occasions, the statue's right hand has been severed and the statue vandalized, and in both cases, the community and Laura's only remaining relative, her great-granddaughter, Laura Ann Hoof Klein, have contributed to its restoration. In the family plot with Laura are her 2 sons that preceded her in death, Samuel, aged 14, and Otho Lamar, aged 1. 4 years after Laura died, her daughter Lillian died on December 5th, 1894, at the age of 22, and another of her sons, Leland Mitchell, died at the age of 35 on October 10th, 1918. The plot is surrounded by a black wrought iron fence, and the only child she had that survived to adulthood was Alta S. Kelly Clark, and is the only person to have a surviving line of direct descendants. Legend also says that when Laura died, her husband, Clay, had a 3rd floor added to their home at 309 East Jefferson Street so that he could see the grave from the window. But research shows that even with binoculars, it would have been difficult for Clay to see the statue from the home due to the distance of East Jefferson Street from City Cemetery. And though Clay was said to be distraught over the death of Laura, he did remarry, and it is said that he even remarried twice. His second wife, Lucy Leek Kern Kelly, died at the age of 37. Lucy and Clay were married in 1891 and had 3 daughters. So he only waited a year, if that.
Right.
But Mary was born in 1893, Rosa was born in 1895, and Lucy was born in 1897. The mother, Lucy, his wife, had the girls and were visiting with relatives in Lexington, Mississippi when she suddenly fell ill and died. But she is not buried in the family plot in City Cemetery, and it is said that Clay married again to Katie Cross Kelly, and she is linked to him on Find a Grave, but there are no existing marriage records. When Lucy died, she left 3 small girls behind, ages 5, 3, and 2 months. The girls remained living with their widowed father until 1914, when it was reported that on Valentine's Day, the bank that he worked for closed and he was bankrupt. And by 1918, Clay was dead, along with Rosa's eldest sister, Mary. Clay is buried beside his beloved Laura in City Cemetery. Neither Rosa or Lucy appeared on a 1920 census record. However, Rosa was listed as a patient at Mississippi State Insane Asylum on the 1930 census, and by the 1940 census, her status had been updated to inmate, and there are no official records of Rosa after this. Unfortunately, many residents of asylums were buried in unmarked graves, and it is surmised that Rosa is buried in Rose Hill Cemetery in Cato, Mississippi. There are some ghost stories attached to the statue of the late Mrs. Kelly, and it has been reported that she turns on her base at midnight and occasionally weeps. And on the anniversary of her death, a rose mysteriously appears in her hand.
Oh. Weird.
Yeah.
Alright, so I'm gonna do the laws again. And I also found some inventions that came from Mississippi. Now, I was not able to find a whole lot in the law thing.
Mm-hmm.
So Mississippi got their shit together for the most part. Which is crazy to me. But here we are. I'm going to read... I'll just do a couple of them. Mm. And then you can go on.
Okay.
So in Ridgeland, it's illegal for a home to have exterior burglar bars that are visible from the street. And those that violate this law can face up to $1,000. So you know what I'm talking about? Like having bars on the outside of your windows. Mm-hmm. And then attending an Ole Miss game in Oxford. Better be cautious when cheering because the city has a law on the books that says it's illegal to cheer unless there's a reason to.
The hell?
Right. Also, you better think twice about taking part in some cattle rustling. It's punishable by hanging. What does that even really mean? I think I meant to look that up and I didn't. I should probably know what that is.
Probably.
It's the act of stealing cattle.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So if you're planning on stealing somebody's cows,
don't do it.
You get hung. Are you a bit of a wanderer?
Maybe.
Then you better stay away from Mississippi because being a vagrant in the state is punishable by either a $250 fine or a month in prison. Are you thinking about doing some fishing in Hazelhurst?
Probably not.
Well, you cannot use a gun if you decide to do so.
Okay.
That's illegal. Okay, go ahead and go to your next one because then these kind of start getting a little bit deeper.
Listed on the National Register of Historic Places and a designated Mississippi landmark, the old truss bridge known as Stuckey's Bridge has long been closed to vehicles, but that doesn't stop visitors from venturing out onto Stuckey's Bridge looking for the ghost of Old Man Stuckey. Legend says that the train-robbing Dalton gang passed through Meridian in the late 1800s and left behind one member of their group. Stuckey made his way down the dirt road along the Chunky River and established an inn beside the banks. At dusk, he would cross the bridge with a lantern and call out to exhausted travelers who were floating on the river to stop in for the night and have a hot meal and comfortable bed. Once his guests fell asleep, Stuckey would murder them in their beds, steal their belongings, and bury their bodies on the river's edge. He killed more than 20 victims before he was caught by the local sheriff, tried, and hung from the bridge. His body hung there for 5 days over the Chunky River before the noose was cut and he dropped into the depths of the river. The original bridge was replaced in 1901 by the current truss bridge, but apparently the replacement hasn't deterred Stuckey from hanging around. Visitors to the area have reported some peculiar sights, including seeing an old man carrying a lantern at the water's edge, the sound of a body splashing into the river, and some have claimed to see Stuckey's body swaying in the wind. It has also been reported that Stuckey's angry spirit pushed some off of the bridge. The Travel Channel has labeled this location as one of the most terrifying places in America. And if you're ever near Meridian, Mississippi, and want to take a quick detour off I-59, you too can see Stuckey's Bridge and possibly even his spirit.
I've been to Meridian, Mississippi.
I have not.
All right. So back to the laws in Winona. It is illegal to honk a car horn because it could possibly scare a horse. So section 69. Oh, no.
69.
This is a different law. My bad. Anyway, moving on. Section 69-3-3 makes it a crime to pick up pecans alongside the road during harvesting season. For this, you can be fined up to $100 or a maximum of 30 days in jail. So don't pull over and pick pecans. And this is because there are farmers in the Mississippi Delta region and other areas whose chief source of income may be the pecans. You can see the fields of pecan trees when you pass by, and some of the branches stick out over the road right-of-ways. Then section 63-1-1111 makes it a crime to carry a cane or a walking stick, which is metallic or white and having a red tip if you are not blind. This carries a fine of up to $25 or 10 days in jail. So check the color of your cane or walking stick if you walk with one. This particular law is to be read along with other parts of the statute, which makes it mandatory while you are driving to avoid or even stop your car if a blind or disabled person with such a cane is crossing the road. The law also states that it does not apply to trains, which one would assume anyway.
You know, that's good. It's Molly. Have you ever heard of Molly Burke? YouTuber. She's blind. I think she did a video with Shane forever ago.
Maybe.
She's the blind girl he let drive a car forever ago. Anyway.
Ringing a bell, but...
She's been hit by 2 cars.
Oh.
She's like, people just don't pay attention.
Yeah. I'll do this one and then you can go.
Okay.
Section 37-31-45 authorizes law enforcement to pull over a school bus if it is not being used in connection with the school, and that fine is $50. My source had no idea or opinion as to why the legislature felt the need to pass this law, but there had to be a reason. And it's honestly a low price to pay for the opportunity to load up 25 or so of your buddies.
Yeah.
On a party bus and go to a social event.
Yeah.
So, hold on. I don't know why that. Go ahead. I don't know why that's even there.
Hold on. I'm eating runts. Constructed in the 1850s for the Daniel Graham family, the Longfellow House has long been the subject of local lore. Originally standing on an extensive piece of property, this 3-story structure boasted 400 feet of waterfront property on Pascagoula Bay. The home was constructed of native pine and cypress and was topped with a slate roof, punctuated by 3 dormers and 2 chimneys at each end. The most grand feature of the home was, and still is, the self-supporting, winding staircase that leads to the 3rd floor. Over the years, this estate has been home to many folks, which generated a lot of fascinating stories about the property. The first owners, the Grahams, were slave traders with a reputation for being cruel to their slaves, and allegedly this resulted in blood stains on the floors of the 3rd story. The Grahams lived here for quite some time, and then the home sat empty for several years, which prompted locals to begin saying that it was haunted. Between 1873 and 1902, the home became known... Are you getting a phone call?
My daughter.
Oh. The home became known as Bellevue and changed hands at least 9 different times. Some of the owners lived on the property and others did not. It even served as a girls' school at one point. The history of the Longfellow House has become quite muddled over the years, which has also contributed to the legends surrounding it. W.A. Pollock purchased the home in 1902, and his family lived there until 1938, which is the longest tenure of any family to have lived in the home. The Pollock family sold the house to Mayor Frank Canty, who resold it 3 years later to the Ingalls Shipbuilding Corporation. Ingalls owned the estate for several decades and completely transformed it into a private residence to an exclusive club and resort. The property included many luxury amenities, including cottages, hotel rooms, dining rooms, a lounge, a swimming pool, and a golf course. In 2020, I'll probably abbreviate some of this because it's quite lengthy and I'm tired. Richard Lucas wrote an article about the Longfellow House and the full-service facility that became known as the Longfellow House Resort and Gardens. He said that for members, which fortunately included his family, the options for entertainment, sports, and activities were plentiful. He recalled that the house itself was made into a classic mid-century hotel, restaurant, and bar, and there were some other more modern condos spread out throughout the property. With there was a swimming pool and lounging area. And he said he and many others learned how to swim there, and it was a popular gathering spot for all ages in the summer. There was a 6-hole par 3 golf course called Seaview Links, which was a perfect training ground for local golfers at the time. There was a state-of-the-art tennis course. They had a pier. The pier was a structure on the beach at the front of the Longfellow house and went about 300 feet into the Gulf. This was a great spot to catch fish and crabs for boating and a nice spot for a romantic walk late at night. There was shuffleboard, horseshoes, bicycles. There was a bar called the Poet's Nest Bar, which I like the name of it. That's why I left that on there. Let's see. After several years of success, the patronage began to decline and the Longfellow house fell into disrepair. Eventually, a real estate developer purchased the property and divided the land to sell as lots, and the house was sold to Diane and Richard Scruggs. The couple spent countless hours researching the history of the home and restoring it to its original grandeur before they donated it to the University of Mississippi Foundation. The home suffered damage in Hurricane Katrina in 2005 and was purchased by Doctors Tracy and Randy Roth, who had lost their own historic home in the hurricane. They undertook the repairs, and once again, the house is a private residence. There have been many legends to arise from the home, but the most well-known is the one that gave it its name. Poet Henry Wadsworth Longfellow allegedly visited the estate and was so inspired by the bay that he penned the building of a ship. Locals like to tell this story as though it is fact, but it is just a legend. The poem describes the process of a ship being constructed and does mention Pascagoula, and locals likely drew the connection due to this reference and the town's history with shipbuilding, and concluded that the poet had to have witnessed the shipbuilding in Pascagoula. However, if you actually read the poem, it reveals that Pascagoula was the source of the lumber used for the ship, and it was a major exporter of timber at the time. And the line in the poem just says, "Brought from regions far away from Pascagoula's sunny bay." And apparently Longfellow never even traveled south of Virginia, and the possibility of his visiting the area is most likely a myth. Locals also believe that there is a haunting of the Longfellow house, and the culprit of the paranormal activity is said to be the spirit of a slave who once worked in the home. It has been said that on one occasion he was beaten so badly that he was on the brink of death before he was sent into the woods to die. It is thought that this brutal treatment by his owners had bound his spirit to the property, and he is often heard moving around upstairs. It is said that he is an angry spirit, justifiably so if the stories are true. He was said to be violent with staff who reported having been pushed and slapped. And there is also said to be the spirit of a young girl who is reliving her days of when the home was a girls' school.
All right. So, have you ever wondered while you're pumping gas into your car, and like, maybe not particularly this part, but like, we use premium gas in all of our vehicles, but then you're looking at the gas truck, like the big semi, who's refilling the tanks, the underground tanks.
Yeah.
Do you not wonder if it's not all the same kind of gas in that truck, and they're just putting it all in the same thing, and you're being charged 3 different prices?
Maybe. So
Section 75-55-21 addresses that issue, and it makes it a penalty up to a $1,000 fine and 12 months in jail for a wholesale gas distributor to pull such a stunt. And it also makes it a crime to falsely label the pumps or disguise whatever watered down product they are selling as Exxon, Shell, or whatever. So this isn't an unusual law.
Right.
But this source did want to find out if it was protected in any way from fake gas companies. But in other news, in Temperance, Mississippi, you can't walk a dog without dressing it in diapers.
Oh.
Also, rightfully so, it is illegal to sell cat meat in Mississippi.
Good.
So we don't know why this one's on the books, but in Mississippi, with it being illegal in Mississippi, only Michigan, Virginia, California, Hawaii, New York, and Georgia expressly outlaw eating dogs and cats. So it's not a law anywhere else but those states.
Oh.
Yeah. It wasn't until the 2018 farm bill that was signed into law by President Donald Trump that legislation outlawed the cat and dog meat trade in the U.S. I didn't know it was a whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
If, you're in need of a good shave of any type, you can't do it in the center of Main Street in Tylertown. This one is oddly specific, and I couldn't find why. But in Oxford, it is illegal to drive around the Times Square more than 100 times in a single session.
Who's doing that? Who's doing that?
I'd like to see how big this town square is and how much space and
who did that? Who?
Now, I will say,
being a little shit.
You remember not too terribly long ago,
Ronda the Roundabout?
Yeah.
Yes.
And there were people that were just...
Yeah. We tried to explain Ronda the Roundabout to court when she was here. And she was like, okay.
Did y'all go?
No.
Oh.
No, we happened to go. I think we went through we went through a roundabout at some point for some reason. I think it was when we were downtown Nashville and it came up. And she was like,
around the naked statues? You should have taken her around the naked people statues.
What naked people statues?
There's a roundabout around a big statue of naked people.
Oh.
You didn't know?
No.
I think it's over by Music Row.
I mean, we could have. I don't know. I have no idea. If I'm being totally honest.
It's the Musica statue. It's at the Division Street, 16th Avenue North, which is Music Row. It's known as the Music Row Roundabout or the Buddy Killing Circle.
Oh. I think we did go by that.
You didn't know they were naked?
Oh, I didn't.
Girl.
I didn't put two and two together.
Every time we go around it, if we've got the kids in the car, I'm like, don't look!
Don't look, Ethel.
It's too late. She done been mooned. No, the last time, because we went around it not too terribly long ago, and I was like, don't look, Easton, don't look. And he's going, trying to see boobies. Did I tell you? This is what I was going to say on the last episode.
Oh.
Speaking of Easton and the boobies.
Oh, Lord. Yes.
So I was talking about going to the tattoo shop on Friday 13th, okay?
Yep.
So I had to take kids with me, just the smaller two.
Mm-hmm.
So we're sitting there, and we're waiting my turn. And Easton's going through, there was a bunch of books that weren't, necessarily their flash, but it was, I guess, books that talked about, different styles of tattoos and stuff.
Yeah, and coffee table books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he found a book, and he's going through it, and I look down, and it's got, the trad style of, Americana type tattoos and stuff like that. And so he's looking through it, and there's like naked women. And I see it, and there's another woman that's standing over next to me watching him look at this book. And I'm like, hey, buddy, why don't we find a different book? He's like, no, I'm good. As he's looking at these pictures of these,
right.
They're not like actual naked women. They're like drawings.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, buddy, I really think that you should find a different book. There's another book over there that's about cars. Look at that one. And he's like, no, I like this. This kid looked through this book probably 6 times. I'm like, good Lord. So then when I get back there to do my tattoo, the artist was like, he goes, which I know the guy, he was like, he's going to be like, hey, Mom, why don't you take me back to that place that's got that book with titties in it? I was like, you're probably right. You are probably right.
Bless it.
Have mercy. Anyway, move on to your next one.
Built by Colonel George Hampton Young of Georgia in 1852, the Waverly Mansion is a prime example of antebellum architecture and opulence, but remains unique with its octagonal-shaped cupola and its self-supporting curved stairways. The plantation was a self-sustaining community boasting gardens, orchards, and livestock. On the property, there was a brick kiln, cotton gin ice house, and a swimming pool with a bathhouse. In later years, the Waverly had its own lumber mill, leather tannery, and hat manufacturing operation. It is believed that the first American-made saddle blankets were produced here, and that the first Fox Hunt Association was formed in the library of the mansion in 1893. The Colonel's wife died before Waverly was completed, but she left her mark in the English boxwoods planted at the entrance. It is estimated that these plants are approximately 150 years old and only grow 1 foot every 15 years. The Waverly began to decline in 1913 with the death of Colonel Young's last surviving son, Captain William Young. For nearly 50 years, the Waverly stood alone and abandoned through plunderers, harsh weather, and vandals. It was purchased in 1962 by Mr. and Mrs. Robert Snow of Philadelphia, Mississippi, and through a labor of love, they have worked to restore the mansion and its 40 acres. The home is listed on the National Register of Historic Buildings and is a National Historic Landmark and was recently listed on the Civil War Trail. The property is no longer open to the public for tours, but they do plan to open for special events and pilgrimage. There is said to be a number of spirits hanging around Waverly Mansion, but one of the most unsettling but well known is that of a small girl who is in search of her mother. There have been a large number of visitors who have said that they heard her calling out for her mama. She has also been known to take naps in one of the upstairs bedrooms, which left indents on the bed. Visitors have also reported seeing the spirit of a Confederate soldier appear before them in mirrors. There has also been a ghost rider and horse spotted on the mansion grounds. And the parlor of the home has also been the site of high levels of paranormal activity, and there have been reports of phantom music and laughing coming from that room.
How many more stories you got? One
or two. Maybe just this one.
Yeah, that's all I got. Okay. Cool. I'll finish up the states, and then I'll end, or the thing, and then I'll end with the indentions. All right, so Mississippi drugstores can't sell poison to children.
That's good.
According to the 2020 Mississippi Code, I'm not going to say it, but anyway, 92.27 or 92-27-31. That was weird. To sell poison to children is a misdemeanor. While this might seem like a common sense measure, remember that sending a young child to the store with a list of what you need used to be common practice.
Yeah.
So maybe, just maybe, on that list of things that you gave the child was like rat poison.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It is illegal to use profanity or have profane stickers in public in Mississippi. So those of you with bumper stickers on your car that says pretty much anything.
Yeah.
I wonder how much that's enforced.
I can think of one I saw yesterday, and I was like, that's stupid. It was a political one, so I'm not going to say it, but I was like, that's stupid. You know how stupid you look? And it doesn't matter. Listen, it doesn't matter for me personally which side. If it's dumb, it's dumb. I don't care who it is.
Now I need to know what it said. We can talk about it later.
Yeah.
It is illegal to be disruptive in church in Mississippi. So, don't be going to church acting up. Honestly, you probably can't anyway because you got a granny that's sitting there next to you that's going to smack you upside the head.
Or pinch you.
Mm-hmm. This one kind of got me. This one kind of irked me a little.
Yeah.
Atheists, according to the Mississippi Constitution, Article 14, Section 265, you can't deny the existence of a supreme being and be elected to office. So, if you're an atheist...
It's the same thing in Tennessee.
Really?
Yep.
So atheists can't serve as representatives or senators.
Nope.
But it does say, while the First Amendment would trump this, Mississippi isn't the only state with such a law. However, you may be hard-pressed to find an atheistic elected official anyway, or at least an openly atheistic one.
Because, I mean, let's be honest. Fake it till you make it. Most of them do anyway.
Right. So, there you go. Go ahead. Oh,
I'm chewing.
Oh.
From 1890 to 1927, the Grand Opera House in Meridian, Mississippi, provided both East Mississippi and West Alabama with a wide variety of entertainment, including operas, theater performances, and minstrel shows. The high Victorian architectural style opera house was closed until September 2006. German Jewish immigrants and half-brothers, Marx and Levi Rothenberg, settled in Meridian in the late 1800s when the railroad and timber industries were booming. The brothers opened a department store on Front Street adjacent to the railroad tracks. Business was prospering and they decided to open and operate an opera house for fun and profit. In 1889, they hired Swedish immigrant architect G.M. Torgensen, who was living in Meridian, to design a new store and an elegant opera house to be located just a few blocks from the original store. Torgensen created a store to serve as a monument to the goddess of commerce. The brothers gambled big because shopping in Mississippi hadn't exactly been a pleasurable experience for many residents. The majority of the population lived as yeoman farmers and sharecroppers, and the yeomen prided themselves on buying very little from stores, and sharecroppers had almost no money to spend. One reporter wrote of Marx Rothenberg's store that the exterior of which was designed in the Romanesque revival style and reminded him of a theater when he stood in the atrium center and looked up. The rows of floors awed the observer with a sense of wealth, prosperity, and well-being. And for a century, the store served to inspire shoppers to spend their money with them. The brothers brought in the McGilpatrick family, who built most of the theaters in New York and around the country. Their theaters were famous for their acoustics, sight lines, and stage facilities. And the Grand Opera House was completed in 1890. The first floor was retail space, and the theater was on the second floor. The department store and the opera house would support one another, and employees would work in both. They had their, I'm just going to skip. Y'all don't care about their inaugural performances, I fear. Meridian's most elite turned out in their best dressed for the inaugural performances, and the folks that were unable to purchase tickets watched as the carriages would come and go, because these sorts of theatrics were not the norm at the time. And many of the plays at the Grand Opera House were melodramas with simple plots with easily recognizable villains and heroes. Audience promotions included drawings for door prizes, free ladies' tickets, and at least one lucky winner of a drawing to catch his pig on stage.
Okay.
Throughout the life of the Opera House, the most popular form of entertainment was unfortunately blackface minstrel shows. If you aren't familiar, this was when white performers would put on black makeup on their face and impersonate and satirize African Americans in a variety of shows full of jokes and songs. Over time, white theater owners, including the Grand Opera House owners, began to book African American companies. Performers like Matilda Ciceretta Jones, known as Black Patty, headlined some of the most famous African American companies that played here, and on those occasions, the black patrons who normally sat in the crow's nest or the segregated highest balcony had their seating extended into the dress circle. During its second year of operation, the Marx Rothenberg brothers added a third story which served as the large prop room with an elevator to serve the stage. It wasn't long before competitors started to move in and build more state-of-the-art theaters, because when the Grand was originally opened, there was no form of ventilation, no fans, nothing. So they could only operate from October to April because it was too hot in the summer. These new theaters were like, we got fans. And one theater had a roof that retracted by electric motors so that the audience could be cooled by the night breeze.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. As moving pictures became more and more popular, the Grand was not above using new technology and hosted Thomas Edison's Vitascope, a moving picture machine, before the theater was even totally electrified in 1902. Over time, film became to displace the live performers, and the Opera House hosted both stage and screen performances. They stressed quality and called its films photodramas and would go for the major blockbusters such as D.W. Griffith's The Birth of a Nation. Due to the racist nature of the film, the Grand Opera House announced that one white man had purchased all of the usual black seats in the Opera House in order to deny black people the privilege of seeing the film. Buying blocks of seats, white folks came from cities as far as Selma, Alabama, thus helping to make Birth of a Nation a smash hit. That's so messed up.
Right.
That is so messed up. I cannot imagine being like, I'm going to buy all the seats so that none of you and people like you can't come into the theater.
Now, if I had a disposable income, 10 out of 10 would buy out an entire section just so I didn't have to feel like I'm cramped in.
Oh, yeah.
But not to discriminate.
Right. That's why I put that part in here, because I'm like, it's messed up.
Yeah.
The Grand Opera House finally installed fans with a cooling system in order to stay open year-round, but other movie houses had already cut into their audience. And in 1923, the Sanger movie chain rented the Grand on generous terms in order to obtain a monopoly in the Meridian film business. The lease was for 30 years, but in 1927, the chain obtained a lease on the large Temple Theater and movie house a block from the Grand. They wanted to put the Grand Opera House, to gut the Grand Opera House and turn it into office space, but Levi Rothenberg refused, and he had inserted a clause into the contract that the Grand could only be used as a theater, and the Sanger Company abandoned the building and refused to pay their rent. Rothenberg sued and won, but Sanger appealed and kept the case tied up until Rothenberg's death in 1937. Due to the contentious court case, the theater closed in 1927 and sat vacant for decades. It is said that it had a ghostly appearance during its closure, as though the players had just closed for the night, expecting to return the next morning. Over time, the Marx Rothenberg department store began to use the theater space for storage, and pieces such as the seats and the metal railing on the balcony began to disappear. Anticipating the arrival of the interstate highway and potential visitors, the city held a contest to identify tourist attractions in 1965. The proposal to reopen the Grand Opera House won first prize, and in 1999, after decades of underfunded efforts, Malcolm Portera, then president of Mississippi State University, coordinated efforts to restore the Grand and the Marx Rothenberg department store. The Riley Foundation, a Meridian-based foundation chartered in 1998, jump-started the project in 2000 with a $10 million donation.
Dang.
The city, county, and federal governments joined to complete the $25 million Convention and Performing Arts Center, now known as the MSU Riley Center for Education and Performing Arts. There have been reports of benevolent spirits for decades, but one of the more current legends may have begun with former Opera House director Elliott Street. In a way, it started when I was dating, and I decided to he took this girl out on a date, and he decided to take her into the Opera House one night after a date. At the time, I hadn't started collecting any oral histories yet, so I had no record then of any spirits or any ghosts, but almost every theater has a pet theater ghost. So my date and I went up on the stage, and being of the right gender, she deserved a special tour by the executive director. And I cannot say that I did not wish that she would get scared, and hopefully the male in me could step forward and be the protector. Anyhow, we were there on stage, and we walked through the big metal fire doors where no lights had been rigged yet, so it was really dark. I was making my way with a flashlight over to one of the little pull chain light bulbs, and this was in midsummer. And I walked into a cold spot. I looked down, and the hair on my arm was standing up. Now, I don't know if that was my own fear that rushed through me and made my hair stand up, or if it was something else. But somehow or another, I had never seen my hair stand up quite like that. So I stopped, really still, and at that point, my date says, "Oh, there's a female spirit." And I said, "How do you know that?" And she said, "Because it means us no harm, and it doesn't mind us being here." So that's when I said, why don't we go somewhere else? Street also told the story of a woman who came to the Opera House to request a tour, and during the tour, they had walked past a wooden staircase, and the woman announced that she used to sneak into the Opera House during her break and eat lunch on those stairs. She said that on more than one occasion that she would hear the sound of a lady singing, even though she knew she was the only person in the building. After his own experience with the lady, he said he began to think of the woman whose portrait appears above the stage as the resident lady spirit of the theater. This image, a woman's face framed by flowers, became the logo for the Opera House. Others have suggested that the lady is Lily Langtry, an actress and vocalist of the early 1910s, whose trademark, according to director of the Riley Center, Dennis Sankovich, was a flowering similar to that, like half flowering, I think it was a headpiece or something, that was similar to the one in the portrait above the stage. Neither theory is able to be proven or disproven, and the woman's real identity remains a mystery. And there has been no one to suggest that the woman in the portrait, the spirit of the theater, and Lily are all one and the same, though. Famed New Orleans ghost hunter Bloody Mary has visited the Opera House twice and professed the presence of not just one spirit, but many benevolent spirits. Sankovich said, Bloody Mary came to the Opera House before we began construction on it and said she felt spirits here. She came back a second time with a large group of people and took photos with a digital camera. A lot of the photos had these orbs in them that she said were images of the spirits. I took some myself, which also had the orbs in them. At first, I thought it must be lens flare, but after looking at the pictures more closely, they couldn't have been lens flare. There is nowhere that they could have been coming from. Sankovich said that one of the most impressive photos of an orb was one that, when enlarged, appeared to contain a face. I was recently watching this. I talked about this statement in the last episode, but I was watching Last Stream on the Left and learned a new term. That's where I learned it, was Last Stream on the Left. The discerning believer in the paranormal, or skeptical believer. I personally don't take much stock in orbs because they could be anything from bugs to dust, and there is no verifiable way to prove that they are indeed spirits. But Sankovich also said that Bloody Mary was impressed with the high amount of positive energy that she felt radiated from the spirits. The one thing that both skeptics and believers agree on is the overwhelming positive vibe of the theater. He said most performers that play here are struck by, they just love the feel of the theater. Hal Holbrook said it was one of the two best theaters he's ever played in. And while there haven't been encounters reported by performers, staff swear that the Opera House is home to spirits. One staff member reported having felt a hand touch his shoulder when he was in the theater and turned around to find no one there. Of all of the stories of disembodied singing, flickering lights, and unexplained touches, no one has ever seen a full-bodied apparition in the theater.
Well, that's cool.
That was long-winded. I'm sorry.
Okay. Fine. All right, so let's start to look at what is Mississippi famous for as far as like inventions and things like that. Which, by the way, I'll get there in the next couple of episodes. Never mind. So Barks root beer. It got its start in Biloxi, and that's the
best root beer.
Yes, I say that's the only one that TJ will drink. Really,
I don't mind A&W.
I don't drink root beer at all.
I've never known you to like root beer.
I don't.
One of your children doesn't like it either. Isn't it Gemma?
Probably. I don't know that. I think Maddie will drink it, but like, I don't know. I don't like it. Like, even I got bottle caps on our snack run earlier, and I'm setting the root beer and the cola ones aside because they're nasty.
I don't like root beer flavored candies or anything like that. I think it is pretty nasty.
So this one caught me off guard, but Coca-Cola was invented in Atlanta, Georgia, but it was bottled for the first time in Mississippi. That took place in 1894 in Beidenharn Candy Company in Vicksburg. It's the building that happened in has since been turned into like a Coca-Cola museum. But it's kind of centered around Mississippi's part in that history.
Yeah.
The teddy bear was invented in Mississippi, which I didn't know this. The teddy bear was kind of brought about after the story of Theodore Roosevelt's most famous hunting expedition.
Yeah, I believe that is something that is a thing.
That hunting trip took place in Sharkey County. The world's first round trip transoceanic flight. Hold on. So the pioneer, it says a pioneer in the world of aviation, Henry Tyndall or Dick Merrill, piloted the first ever round trip transatlantic flight in 1936, but that wasn't his only accomplishment. He was Dwight D. Eisenhower's personal pilot during the 1952 elections. He did set several speed records and was the highest paid airmail pilot. But he was born in Iuka, Mississippi. Did I scroll too far? I did not. Kermit the Frog. Jim Henson was from Greenville, Mississippi. So they say that Kermit the Frog is a Mississippian.
I like
that. Stetson hats were kind of created around. Mm-hmm. So John B. Stetson was born in New Jersey and he passed away in Florida. But the father of the cowboy hat learned and honed his craft near Dunn's Falls, which is the tallest waterfall in Mississippi. Huh. So, did you know that back in the day, selling shoes as a pair was not a thing?
No.
Yeah, it wasn't the norm until 1884. The first box pair was sold at Phil Gilbert's shoe parlor in Vicksburg.
I don't know. Something about that really screams capitalism. One shoe at a time?
Yeah. So, did you also, I didn't know this. This one kind of caught me off guard. Where would you think that National Geographic magazine is printed?
Printed?
Yeah.
I guess it's in Mississippi.
Yeah, in Corinth. According to the publication's website, it takes 8 million pounds of paper and 649,000 pounds of ink to print 9 million issues of the magazine each month.
Oh my God. I mean, good for I guess. Right. Is that current? Because I know that, like, traditional media like that is kind of, like,
right,
falling out of favor, particularly with, like, just how, like, harmful.
I don't know. There's not really a date on this. I would guess so. Hold on. Let me scroll back up to the top and see if it's up there.
That's crazy.
This was published in 2022.
That's crazy.
So just a couple of years ago.
There are some dedicated National Geographic.
Right. In 1964, Dr. James Hardy performed a medical first. He transplanted a chimpanzee heart into a human. It paved the way for other medical firsts, which would be the world's first human-to-human transplant in 1967. But performing the first animal-to-human transplant isn't his only contribution to the medical field, though. He was credited with performing the world's first lung transplant surgery, and that all happened in Mississippi. So then the first national celebration of Memorial Day took place in 1868 at Arlington National Cemetery. However, the holiday actually began 2 years earlier in 1866 at Friendship Cemetery in Columbus.
Damn.
So, there you go. Mississippi got it going on. I was really shocked that I couldn't find a whole lot more, I guess, out of Mississippi on the stuff that I focus on. Yeah. I guarantee you there's ghost lore like crazy down there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there were quite a few places. But I had so much going on, I really didn't, like, put together as comprehensive of a list as I normally would.
We'll eventually come around back to it, I'm sure. But
yeah.
I will go ahead and say it. I think it's funny that unknowingly we did this plus this other episode.
Yeah, that it also involves Mississippi.
Here, I think it's not the next one, but the next one.
Yeah, I think so.
So 2 weeks from now, you will hear what I'm talking about. But that's all I got. That's all you got?
That's all I have.
Let's not forget our nonprofit of the month in celebration of July's Collector Car Appreciation Day, which is the second Friday in July. Hagerty Drivers Foundation. I'm not going to go through the whole spiel again, but basically, they're just trying to conserve that part of our history and our culture.
Automotive.
Which
history.
I think is a pretty cool deal.
Yeah.
So, there we go.
Race Hill Praisdale. Follow us.
On Facebook.
Instagram.
TikTok.
YouTube.
And you can email us as well at wandersofweird@gmail.com. There you go. I got it that time.
Sayonara.
Okay, bye.